The wedding cake was supposed to be 3 tiers of vanilla elegance. Instead, Suzanne Miller stood frozen in the grand ballroom of the Buckhead Country Club, watching her future mother-in-law slice through what looked more like a monument to excess. 7 tiers of gold-dusted extravagance that cost more than Suzanne's car. "Isn't it magnificent?" Brenda Haynes's voice carried across the rehearsal dinner with the same authority she'd once used to command high school assemblies. "I told the baker, spare no expense for my son's wedding." My son's wedding. Not their wedding. Not Suzanne's wedding. The possessive pronoun hung in the air like the scent of the 200 white roses Brenda had ordered to replace Suzanne's choice of simple wildflowers.
"It's overwhelming."
The words escaped before Suzanne could stop them. Around her, the carefully curated crowd of Atlanta's elite, people she'd never met before tonight, continued their champagne-fueled conversations, but Brenda's dark eyes snapped to her with laser precision. The older woman's smile never wavered, but something flickered behind it. Suzanne recognized that look. She'd seen it in the faces of customers at the bookstore who demanded to speak to managers, who insisted that the rules didn't apply to them.
"Overwhelming. My dear, this is what the Haynes family deserves. Surely after your previous situation, you can appreciate the importance of doing things properly this time."
Previous situation. Brenda's euphemism for Suzanne's first marriage, which had ended when her husband left her for his 20-something secretary. The rehearsal dinner guests nearby pretended not to notice the barb, but Suzanne saw the subtle shifts, the averted eyes, the hushed whispers behind manicured hands. She forced herself to breathe slowly, counting the beats like she used to count the cash register at day's end. 1, 2, 3. Her fingers found the small scar on her palm, a nervous habit from childhood, pressing against it until the slight pain grounded her. Darrell appeared at her elbow then, his cologne, something expensive Brenda had bought him, preceding his tentative touch on her arm.
"Mom, please, let's just enjoy the evening."
His voice carried that particular exhaustion Suzanne had come to recognize over their 2-year relationship. The voice of a man who'd learned that resistance was futile, that it was easier to bend than to break against his mother's will. Brenda's laugh tinkled like crystal.
"Oh, Darrell, we are enjoying it, aren't we, Suzanne? Look at all these wonderful people who've come to celebrate you both. Senator Williams and his wife, the Chandlers from the Country Club board, Dr. Foster from Emory."
None of them were Suzanne's guests. Her list, her carefully chosen list of 25 people who actually mattered to her, had been eliminated. Space constraints, Brenda had explained, though the ballroom could easily hold 300. Suzanne scanned the room, searching for a familiar face. Her sister Emma from Tennessee. Not invited. Her book club friends. Not invited. Her co-worker Janet, who'd held her hand through the divorce. Not invited. Even her cousin Marie, who'd been like a second mother to her, somehow didn't make Brenda's cut. The room spun slightly, all those strange faces blurring together like an impressionist painting of wealth and privilege. She excused herself, needing air, needing space, needing anything but this suffocating performance. The bathroom was mercifully empty. Suzanne gripped the marble countertop, staring at her reflection. 52 years old, wearing a dress Brenda had selected because her own choice was too casual for the occasion. Her graying hair pulled into an elegant chignon that the stylist, also Brenda's choice, had insisted was more appropriate than her usual loose waves. She looked like a stranger, a well-dressed, appropriately styled stranger, playing a role in someone else's production. Her phone buzzed. A text from Janet. "Hope the rehearsal dinner is going well. Can't wait to see pics from the wedding." The wedding Janet wouldn't be attending. The wedding none of Suzanne's real friends would witness. The bathroom door opened, and 2 women entered, their voices carrying the particular pitch of gossip.
"Can you believe Brenda actually pulled this off? I mean, her son marrying someone so different."
"Well, you know Brenda. She'll civilize anyone if it means keeping up appearances. Did you see the engagement announcement she had rewritten? Made it sound like that bookkeeper was some kind of literary executive."
They hadn't noticed Suzanne in the last stall. She held her breath, anger and humiliation warring in her chest. When they finally left, Suzanne emerged slowly. Her hands shook as she washed them, the water too hot, but the pain somehow necessary. In the mirror, she saw something shift in her own expression, something Brenda hadn't accounted for in all her careful planning. The dining room had been rearranged in her absence. Her seat, which had been next to Darrell, was now 3 places away, with Senator Williams' wife between them. Brenda stood at the head of the table, raising her glass.
Before we enjoy this magnificent dinner, I want to say a few words about this beautiful union. When Darrell told me he was getting married again,
as if Darrell's brief first marriage to his college girlfriend was the reference point, not Suzanne's 15 years with Richard.
I knew I had to ensure everything was perfect. This wedding isn't just about 2 people coming together. It's about maintaining the standards and traditions that make families like ours special. It's about showing the community what we represent.
Suzanne's phone vibrated again. This time it was Emma. Just found out from Cousin Marie that we're not invited to the wedding. What's going on, Susie? The text blurred as tears threatened. Suzanne blinked them back, her jaw clenching. Around her, the guests raised their glasses, toasting to Brenda's vision of perfection. Darrell caught her eye across the table, offering a weak smile that might have been an apology or might have been nothing at all. That's when Suzanne noticed the folder beside Brenda's plate. Legal-sized, with a law firm's embossed logo. She'd seen similar folders before, during her divorce proceedings. Her stomach tightened. After the toast, as the first course was served, some kind of foam that was supposed to be soup, Brenda made her way to Suzanne's new seat.
Oh, I nearly forgot. There's just a tiny formality we need to handle. Nothing major, just a simple prenuptial agreement, standard practice in the Haynes family.
She placed the folder in front of Suzanne with the same casual authority with which she'd rearranged the entire wedding. Inside, 30 pages of legal text swam before Suzanne's eyes, but certain phrases jumped out. Waiver of all claims. Separate property maintained. No right to alimony. Agreement to relocate if requested.
When did Darrell...
Oh, Darrell doesn't know about these tedious details. Men shouldn't have to worry about such things. This is between us women, isn't it? We understand the importance of protecting family assets.
The foam soup curdled in Suzanne's stomach. She looked across the table where Darrell was engaged in animated conversation with Dr. Foster about golf handicaps, oblivious to the document that would define their future. A waiter refilled her wine glass, and Suzanne found herself studying the deep burgundy liquid, how it caught the light from the chandeliers. It would stain terribly if spilled on Brenda's cream-colored designer suit. The thought came unbidden, almost foreign, as if whispered by someone else entirely. The evening dragged on through 6 more courses. Suzanne smiled when spoken to, nodded at appropriate moments, and played the part of the grateful bride-to-be. But inside, something fundamental had shifted, like a fault line finally giving way after years of pressure. During the dessert course, individual chocolate soufflés, Suzanne excused herself again. This time, she walked through the club's hallways until she found herself in the parking lot. The spring air was cool against her flushed skin. She could leave, right now, get in her sensible Honda and drive away from all of this. But her feet remained planted on the asphalt, her body caught between flight and fight. Her phone rang. It was Lori Chen, Darrell's colleague, who'd become something close to a friend over the past year.
Suzanne, I just heard from Darrell that I'm not invited to the wedding anymore. Something about venue capacity. That can't be right. The Haynes estate could hold 500 people easily.
It's not about space, Lori. It's about control.
The words came out harder than intended, crystallized by the cool night air and the weight of realization.
What's really going on? This isn't like you to let someone railroad you like this.
Wasn't it? Suzanne thought of her first marriage, how she'd let Richard make all the decisions, choose their house, their cars, their life. How she'd smiled and adapted and accommodated until he'd left her for someone who demanded more. But that had been different. She'd been younger, less sure of herself. Now, at 52, she knew exactly who she was. Or at least, she had known, before Brenda began her systematic dismantling.
I have to go. They'll notice I'm gone.
Suzanne, wait. If you need anything at all, you call me. Promise.
I promise.
Back in the dining room, the evening was winding down. Guests were gathering their wraps, exchanging air kisses, promising to see each other at the wedding. Brenda held court near the exit, accepting compliments on the evening's perfection. Darrell found Suzanne near the coat check.
Where did you go? Mom was looking for you.
I needed some air. Darrell, we need to talk about the prenup your mother...
Can we discuss it tomorrow? Please? It's been such a long day and Mom put so much work into tonight.
There it was again. That exhaustion, that defeat. Suzanne wondered if she was looking at her future, forever managing Brenda's expectations, forever keeping the peace, forever shrinking herself to fit into the space allocated to her. As they waited for the valet to bring Darrell's car, a BMW naturally, another gift from Brenda, Suzanne noticed something she'd missed before. In the folder with the prenup, tucked behind the legal documents, was a receipt. Her accountant's eye caught the details immediately. A payment to a private investigator, dated 3 months ago, right after their engagement announcement. Brenda had been investigating her, digging into her past, her finances, her life, looking for leverage, for weakness, for ways to control. The valet arrived with the car, and Darrell opened her door with the mechanical courtesy of habit rather than affection. As they drove through Atlanta's tree-lined streets toward Suzanne's apartment, she'd refused Brenda's offer to move into the family estate before the wedding. Suzanne made a decision. She wouldn't sign the prenup. She wouldn't smile through a wedding where none of her people were present. She wouldn't become another accessory in Brenda's carefully curated life. But she also wouldn't simply walk away. No, that would be too easy, too expected. Brenda had investigated her? Well, two could play that game. Suzanne had spent 20 years as a bookkeeper, tracking numbers, following paper trails, finding discrepancies. She knew how to be thorough, methodical, patient. At her apartment building, Darrell leaned over to kiss her goodnight. But Suzanne turned, offering her cheek instead.
Is everything okay? You've been quiet.
Everything's perfect, just like your mother planned.
The irony was lost on him. He smiled, relieved, and waited until she was inside before driving away. In her apartment, Suzanne went straight to her home office, a converted bedroom where she did freelance bookkeeping to supplement her income. She opened her laptop and began typing search terms. Brenda Haynes, Hampton High School principal, financial records, public information request. Every public employee left a paper trail. Every fundraiser, every budget, every decision. And Suzanne had nothing but time. 7 days until the wedding that would never happen the way Brenda planned. She poured herself a glass of wine, cheap grocery store Merlot that Brenda would mock, and settled in for a long night. On her desk, the prenup folder lay open, Brenda's demands spelled out in black and white. But beside it, Suzanne's notebook began filling with her own plans, her own investigations, her own careful strategy. The bookkeeper was keeping a different kind of book now, a ledger of slights and manipulations, of investigations and invasions. And when the final tally was made, Brenda Haynes would learn that some costs couldn't be calculated in dollars and cents. Some costs were paid in dignity, and Suzanne Miller was done being poor. Her phone buzzed one last time, a text from an unknown number, but the writing style was unmistakably Brenda's. "Don't forget to sign the papers, dear. We wouldn't want any delays for the wedding." Suzanne smiled, an expression that would have chilled anyone who saw it. She had 7 days. 7 days to uncover whatever Brenda was hiding. 7 days to plan something that would make the society pages, just not in the way Brenda intended. The wedding would go on. But it would be Suzanne's show, not Brenda's. And the final act? That would be something no one would forget. 3 days had passed since the rehearsal dinner. 3 days of Suzanne Miller diving deep into public records, financial filings, and social media posts. Her dining table had transformed into a war room, laptops, printed documents, and coffee-stained notebooks, mapping out Brenda Haynes's carefully constructed empire. The morning sun filtered through her apartment windows, illuminating a particularly interesting discovery. Hampton High School's fundraising records from 5 years ago showed a discrepancy of $40,000. The money had been raised for new computer equipment that, according to purchase orders, was never actually bought. Suzanne's phone rang, interrupting her concentration. Darrell's name flashed on the screen.
Hi, honey. Mom wants to know if you've signed the papers yet. She says the lawyer needs them by tomorrow for processing.
I'm still reviewing them. It's a big decision, Darrell.
I know, but Mom says it's just standard.
Your mother says a lot of things. Did she also tell you she hired a private investigator to look into my background?
Silence stretched across the line. Suzanne could picture him, probably sitting in his office at the marketing firm, that little crease forming between his eyebrows when he was confused.
That must be a misunderstanding. Mom wouldn't...
I have the receipt, Darrell, from the folder she gave me with the prenup.
More silence, then a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of 35 years of maternal manipulation.
I'll talk to her.
Don't. Not yet. I want to handle this myself.
After ending the call, Suzanne returned to her research. She'd learned that Brenda sat on 3 nonprofit boards, controlled 2 investment accounts, and had recently sold a property in Savannah for well below market value. The buyer was interesting, a company called Peachtree Holdings LLC, registered to an address that traced back to Brenda's cousin. Her doorbell rang, unexpected and jarring. Through the peephole, she saw Lori Chen, holding a bottle of wine and wearing oversized sunglasses despite the overcast sky. Suzanne opened the door, and Lori practically pushed past her.
We need to talk and drink. Probably drink first, actually.
They settled in Suzanne's living room, Lori pouring generous glasses of the Pinot Grigio she'd brought. Up close, Suzanne noticed the careful concealer not quite hiding the redness around Lori's eyes.
What happened?
I got a call from Brenda Haynes yesterday. She wanted to have coffee, said she felt bad about the wedding invitation mix-up.
Suzanne's stomach tightened. Brenda never felt bad about anything.
She spent an hour asking questions about you, your work habits, your friends, whether you'd ever mentioned your ex-husband. Then she started implying things, suggesting that maybe you had issues, mental health problems, asking if I'd ever seen you act erratically.
She's building a case, making sure if I cause any problems, she can paint me as unstable.
That's what I thought too. But here's the thing. I've known Brenda longer than you have. We worked on the Literacy Foundation board together 3 years ago, and there were rumors.
Suzanne leaned forward, her pulse quickening.
Money went missing from the foundation. Not a huge amount, but enough. $20,000 designated for books for low-income schools. Brenda was the treasurer, and when questions came up, she somehow turned it around on the foundation president, implied he'd been skimming. He resigned in disgrace.
But you don't think he did it?
I know he didn't, because I saw Brenda's car at the Venetian Casino in Alabama 6 times that month. High-stakes poker room. My cousin works security there.
The pieces were clicking together in Suzanne's mind like tumblers in a lock. The sold property, the fundraising discrepancies, the desperate need to maintain appearances. Brenda Haynes had a gambling problem. Suzanne got up and retrieved her research from the dining table, showing Lori the financial patterns she'd discovered.
Would your cousin talk to me, off the record?
Probably. But Suzanne, you need to be careful. Brenda's destroyed people for less than what you're doing. That foundation president. His wife left him. He lost his job at the bank. And last I heard, he was working at a hardware store in Macon.
They spent the next hour going through the documents together, Lori's business acumen adding new insights. She pointed out shell company structures, suspicious fund transfers, and property sales suggesting desperate measures. Suzanne's phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message was a photo of her from that morning's coffee shop with text, "Stop digging or I'll bury you first." Lori saw her face pale.
What is it?
Suzanne showed her. Lori's expression hardened.
She's escalating. Document everything.
I need more than documentation. I need leverage.
That evening, Suzanne met Laurie's cousin Marcus at a diner off Interstate 85, far from Buckhead's manicured streets. He was a large man with kind eyes and careful words. Marcus slid a manila envelope across the cracked Formica table.
I shouldn't be doing this, but Laurie says you're good people. And Brenda Haynes, well, she's not. Those are security stills from the past year. She's there at least twice a week, always at the high roller tables.
Suzanne opened the envelope carefully. The black and white images were grainy but clear enough. Brenda at poker tables, Brenda at roulette, Brenda signing what looked like IOUs. In one image, she was being escorted to what Marcus identified as the manager's office. Never a good sign in a casino. But it was the last photo that made Suzanne's breath catch. Brenda wasn't alone. She was with a man, younger, well-dressed, and they were clearly together. His hand on her lower back, her head tilted toward him intimately. The timestamp was from 6 months ago.
That's Tommy Reeves. He runs high-interest loans for people who can't get credit anywhere else. Not quite mob, but close enough. Word is, she owes him close to $200,000.
That's why she needs this wedding. She's not trying to control Darrell's life. She's trying to save her own.
There's more. Tommy's been pressuring her. He wants his money, and he's given her a deadline. The end of this month.
After Darrell and Suzanne's wedding, after she'd have access to financial benefits from the union. Perhaps she planned to pressure Darrell for loans or had other schemes. Suzanne thanked Marcus and drove home through darkening streets. She had ammunition now, but using it was dangerous. Back at her apartment, Darrell waited in the lobby with yellow roses. Her favorites, not his mother's white ones.
We need to talk. Can I come up?
In her apartment, Darrell seemed smaller somehow, diminished without his mother's shadow. He set the roses in water with the careful precision of someone delaying a difficult conversation.
I talked to Mom about the private investigator. She said she was just being protective, making sure you weren't after the family money.
And you believed her?
I don't know what to believe anymore. She's been acting strange lately, more controlling than usual, if that's possible. And there have been phone calls. She takes them in private, gets agitated after.
Suzanne made a decision. She showed him the text threat, watched his face cycle through disbelief, anger, and finally, a deep sadness.
This isn't her. This can't be her.
There's more, Darrell. Your mother is in serious financial trouble. Gambling debts. She owes dangerous people money.
She showed him some of the evidence. Not all of it. Not the photos with Tommy Reeves, but enough. Darrell sank onto her couch, his head in his hands.
The family money. There isn't any, is there? It's all gone.
I think she's been maintaining appearances with loans and schemes. The wedding, the elaborate show, it's all a front.
What do we do?
The we hung in the air. Suzanne sat beside him, not touching, maintaining the distance that had grown between them since his mother took over their lives.
You could confront her, call off the wedding, walk away.
She's still my mother. Despite everything, I can't just abandon her.
And there it was. The fundamental weakness Brenda had cultivated in her son. The guilt, the obligation, the inability to break free even when presented with evidence of manipulation and deceit. Suzanne stood, moving to the window. Below, Atlanta's lights sparkled like scattered diamonds, beautiful and cold.
Then we go through with it. The wedding, I mean, but on my terms.
What do you mean?
I mean I play along, sign the prenup, smile for the cameras, be the perfect daughter-in-law. And while everyone's watching the show, I gather enough evidence to protect us both when your mother's house of cards collapses.
It was a dangerous game she was proposing. But the alternative, letting Brenda win, walking away defeated, was unbearable. Suzanne had been dismissed and discarded once before. Not again. Darrell stood, moving toward her uncertainly.
This isn't the wedding we planned. This isn't the life we talked about.
No, it's not. Your mother made sure of that.
He left soon after, the yellow roses the only sign he'd been there. Suzanne locked the door and returned to her research, but her phone rang almost immediately. Brenda's name on the screen. She answered on the third ring.
Suzanne, dear, I understand you've been asking questions about me around town. That needs to stop.
Or what, Brenda? You'll send more threatening texts?
A pause. Then Brenda's voice came back, lower, more dangerous.
I know about Cincinnati, Suzanne. About what happened at your last job before you moved to Atlanta. It would be such a shame if that story got out right before the wedding.
Suzanne's blood turned to ice. Cincinnati, where she'd discovered her boss embezzling and had been fired for causing trouble when she reported it. She'd been blackballed, unable to find work, which is why she'd moved to Atlanta for a fresh start. But the official record made it look like she'd been dismissed for financial irregularities. Brenda had done her homework.
You're threatening me?
I'm protecting my family. Sign the papers, go through with the wedding, and then we can all move forward. Otherwise, well, mud has a way of sticking, doesn't it?
The line went dead. Suzanne stood in her apartment, phone still pressed to her ear, listening to the silence. Outside, thunder rumbled, and the first drops of rain began hitting her windows. She moved to her laptop and opened a new document. If Brenda wanted to play with blackmail, she'd learn that two could play that game. But Suzanne would be smarter, more careful. She'd learned from Cincinnati, never confront corruption head-on without protection. Her phone buzzed with another text, this time from Lori. My contact at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is interested in the story. She covers financial crimes. Want to meet? Suzanne typed back, yes, but not yet. I need more evidence, and I need to protect myself first. She pulled up the prenup documents, reading through them one more time. Then, with steady hands, she signed them. But before she did, she made copies, annotated with her own notes about the circumstances of the signing, the threats made, the coercion applied. She uploaded everything to 3 different cloud services and emailed copies to an old friend who practiced law in California. If Brenda wanted her signature, she'd have it, but it would come with a price the older woman couldn't yet imagine. The rain intensified, pelting against the windows with increasing force. Somewhere across town, Brenda was probably sleeping soundly, confident in her victory. But Suzanne was wide awake, planning and plotting. The wedding was in 4 days. 4 days to gather the final pieces of evidence. 4 days to build an unassailable case. 4 days to prepare for what would either be her greatest triumph or her complete destruction. She opened the casino photos again, studying Brenda's face in the grainy images. The woman who'd systematically stripped away everything meaningful from Suzanne's wedding, who'd threatened and blackmailed and manipulated, she had no idea what she'd awakened. Suzanne had been a victim in her first marriage, passive and accommodating until she'd been discarded. But that woman was gone. In her place stood someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Someone who knew how to keep books and how to balance them. 2 days before the wedding, Suzanne Miller stood in the basement of the Fulton County Courthouse, waiting for public records that might not exist. The clerk, a tired-looking woman named Patricia, returned with a dusty box. "These go back 15 years, Patricia said. "Nobody's requested them before." Inside were the original incorporation documents for Peachtree Holdings, LLC. But the signatures made Suzanne's pulse race, not just Brenda Haynes, but also Judge William Foster, the same Dr. Foster from the rehearsal dinner. The company wasn't just a shell for moving money. It was a conspiracy among Atlanta's elite. Her phone vibrated. A text from Darrell. "Mom's having the final dress fitting moved up to today. She wants you there at 3. It was already 2:30. The dress shop was across town. This was deliberate, Brenda keeping her off balance, controlling her movements. Suzanne photographed every document quickly, then raced through Atlanta's congested streets. She arrived at the boutique breathless, finding Brenda already holding court with the seamstress and 2 women Suzanne didn't recognize.
There you are. I was beginning to worry. Ladies, this is Suzanne, Darrell's fiancée. Suzanne, meet Mrs. Richardson and Mrs. Vale from the Garden Club. They've graciously agreed to help with the flowers since your previous choices fell through.
Previous choices. As if Suzanne's florist hadn't been mysteriously canceled by someone claiming to be the bride. The dress hung on the mannequin, a creation of ivory silk and pearl beading that cost more than Suzanne made in 3 months. It was beautiful, elegant, and absolutely nothing like what she would have chosen for herself. The fitting was torture. Brenda directed every adjustment, every tuck and pin, while maintaining a stream of conversation with her friends about people Suzanne didn't know and events she hadn't attended. It was a masterclass in exclusion disguised as inclusion. Then Mrs. Richardson said something that made Suzanne's blood freeze.
Brenda, dear, I heard the most interesting thing from Tommy Reeves at the club yesterday. He mentioned you're working on some kind of investment opportunity together.
Brenda's hands stilled on the dress fabric. Her smile remained, but her eyes went hard.
Tommy does like to exaggerate. We've discussed a few possibilities, nothing concrete.
Well, he seemed quite confident about getting his return by month's end. Said you were good for it, that there was family money coming in. Family money. Suzanne understood suddenly. Brenda wasn't just planning to use the wedding for appearance. She'd already promised Tommy Reeves money she didn't have, using Darrell's supposed inheritance as collateral for her gambling debts. But there was no inheritance, which meant the seamstress stuck her with a pin, jerking Suzanne back to the moment. In the mirror, she caught Brenda watching her with an expression of cold calculation. After the fitting, Suzanne tried to leave quickly, but Brenda intercepted her in the parking lot.
We need to discuss the honeymoon arrangements. Darrell mentioned you wanted to go to Maine. That's so quaint. I've arranged for the Bahamas instead. The Haynes family has traditions.
The Haynes family seems to have a lot of traditions that don't actually include me.
Brenda's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something desperate and dangerous underneath.
You signed the papers, dear. You agreed to become part of this family. That means doing things our way. Unless you'd prefer, I share what I know about Cincinnati. I have friends at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution who would find that story fascinating.
The same newspaper Laurie's contact worked for. Brenda had her bases covered, but Suzanne had spent the morning learning something else. The Judge Foster connection had unlocked a pattern. Several cases where defendants with gambling problems had received unusually lenient sentences, and their debts to certain unsavory creditors had mysteriously disappeared. Brenda wasn't just in debt to Tommy Reeves. She was part of an entire network of corruption. That evening, Suzanne met Laurie at a wine bar in Decatur, far from their usual haunts. Laurie looked exhausted.
I did what you asked. Looked into Tommy Reeves's other clients. You're not going to believe this.
She slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of news articles, obituaries, and police reports. 3 people who'd owed Tommy money had died in the past 2 years. All ruled accidents or suicides.
The police won't confirm a connection, but the pattern is there. These people don't just owe money, they owe their lives. And Brenda's deadline is in 5 days.
After the wedding, she's planning something at the wedding.
Suzanne's phone rang. Darrell.
Where are you? Mom's here at your apartment. She says you have documents that belong to her.
Suzanne's blood ran cold. She'd left her research at home, thinking it was safe. But Brenda had a key. Of course she did. Darrell probably gave it to her without thinking. She raced home to find her apartment door open, Brenda inside with 2 large men who looked like they bench-pressed cars for fun. Her dining table, her war room, had been cleared. Everything was gone. Brenda stood in the center of the room like a general surveying conquered territory.
Theft of private documents is a crime, Suzanne. These gentlemen are licensed private investigators who witnessed me recovering my stolen property. Would you like to explain to the police why you had confidential financial records belonging to the Hampton School Board?
It was a trap, perfectly sprung. Any complaint Suzanne made would backfire. Brenda had probably already filed a report, ready to trigger if needed. Darrell stood by the window, his face a mix of confusion and growing anger.
Mom, what is this? What's going on?
Your fiancé has been stalking me, Darrell, investigating our family, stealing documents. I think she may be having some kind of breakdown. Pre-wedding stress, perhaps.
There it was. The narrative Brenda had been building. Unstable Suzanne, crazy Suzanne, not to be believed Suzanne. But then Darrell did something unexpected.
I saw the casino photos, Mom.
The room went silent. Brenda's composed mask cracked just slightly.
Suzanne showed me some of them. The gambling, the debts. Is it true? Do you owe Tommy Reeves $200,000?
How dare you?
How dare I?
His shout was so unexpected that everyone jumped. Darrell never raised his voice, never challenged his mother, but something had finally snapped.
You sold grandmother's house in Savannah. You told me it was for renovations on your place, but you were paying off gambling debts, weren't you? And now you're using my wedding, our wedding, as what? Collateral? A show for your creditors?
Brenda's recovery was swift and brutal.
Everything I've done has been for you. To maintain the family name, the family position. You think your little bookkeeper here loves you for yourself? She saw an opportunity, just like your father did with me. At least I'm trying to protect you from making the same mistake.
The mention of Darrell's father, who'd left when Darrell was 10, was calculated to wound. And it worked. Darrell's anger crumbled into hurt, but Suzanne had heard something else in Brenda's words. Just like your father did with me. Brenda had been the one reaching for status, not the other way around. The two investigators were getting restless. Brenda gestured to them.
Take everything. The computers, too.
They packed up Suzanne's laptops, her external drives, even her notebooks. But they didn't know about the cloud backups, or the copies with her lawyer friend in California, or the photos on Lori's phone. After they left, Darrell slumped on Suzanne's couch, looking older than his 35 years.
I don't know what to do. She's my mother, but she's destroying everything.
The wedding is in 2 days. We could call it off.
If we do, Tommy Reeves will come for her. You saw those articles Lori found. People who can't pay him back, they don't do well.
And there it was. The trap within the trap. They couldn't go forward without becoming accomplices to Brenda's schemes, but they couldn't stop without potentially signing her death warrant. Suzanne's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but not threatening this time. It was the address in East Atlanta and a time, midnight. She showed it to Darrell.
Could be a trap.
Everything's a trap now, but I'm going.
At midnight, Suzanne stood outside a closed restaurant in East Atlanta, her pepper spray clutched in her pocket. A figure emerged from the shadows, not Brenda or her thugs, but a small, nervous-looking man in his 60s. He introduced himself as Martin Price, the former foundation president Lori had mentioned, the one Brenda had destroyed.
I heard you were looking into Brenda Haynes. I want to help.
Why now?
Because I spent 3 years rebuilding my life after she destroyed it. And I finally have proof. Not just suspicions. Proof.
He handed her a flash drive.
Email records from the Foundation's old server. Brenda didn't know the IT guy kept backups. She explicitly discussed taking the money, framing me, even jokes about it with someone named WF. William Foster, I assume. It's all there. Timestamps, IP addresses, everything.
Why didn't you use this before?
I was scared. You've seen what she can do. But when I heard she was doing it again, using her son's wedding, I couldn't let another person go through what I did. Take it. Use it. Just be careful. She's more dangerous than you know.
He melted back into the shadows before Suzanne could ask more questions. She drove home through empty streets, the flash drive feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds in her pocket. Back in her ransacked apartment, she found Darrell still there, asleep on her couch. He looked peaceful, younger, like the man she'd fallen in love with before his mother's shadow fell over them. She plugged the flash drive into an old laptop Brenda's goons had missed, her ancient backup machine she kept in the bedroom closet. The emails were damning, not just proof of embezzlement, but a pattern of fraud going back years. And Judge Foster was in deep, helping dismiss cases against Brenda in exchange for cuts of the stolen money. But then she found something that changed everything. An email from 2 weeks ago from Brenda to Tommy Reeves. The life insurance policy on my son is now active. $2 million with myself as beneficiary. If something were to happen during their honeymoon in the Bahamas, it would be tragic but would resolve our mutual problem. Accidents happen on boats all the time. Suzanne's hands shook. Brenda wasn't planning to extract money from the marriage. She was planning to extract it from Darrell's death. The honeymoon in the Bahamas. Isolated, international waters. Easy to stage an accident. She looked at Darrell sleeping on her couch, oblivious to his mother's ultimate betrayal. How could she tell him this? How could she prove it without the original emails? Her phone rang. Lori.
Suzanne, thank God. Are you watching the news?
No, why?
Tommy Reeves was just arrested. Federal charges, racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. The FBI's been investigating him for months. They're rounding up everyone connected to him.
Suzanne's mind raced. If Tommy was arrested, his threats against Brenda might be neutralized. But Brenda didn't know that yet. She was still planning her monstrous solution. The wedding was in 36 hours. Suzanne had proof of attempted murder conspiracy, embezzlement, and fraud. But Brenda had destroyed her credibility, painted her as unstable, stolen her evidence. She made a decision. She woke Darrell gently, showed him the email about the life insurance, watched his face crumble as he read his mother's plan for his death. He didn't cry. He just sat there, hollow-eyed, as the last of his illusions died.
She was going to kill me, her own son.
We're going to stop her, but we have to be smart. The wedding has to go on.
Are you insane?
No, for the first time in months, I'm thinking clearly. Your mother's created the perfect stage for her own downfall. We just need to make sure the right people are watching when the curtain falls.
The morning of the wedding dawned perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of May day that wedding photographers dream about. Suzanne stood in the bridal suite of the Haynes estate, surrounded by strangers pretending to be friends, while her real plan took shape through carefully orchestrated text messages. Lori was in position at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Martin Price waited in the parking lot with FBI agents who'd been very interested in his evidence about Judge Foster. And Darrell, pale but determined, was playing his part as the nervous groom. Brenda swept into the suite, wearing a mother-of-the-groom dress that somehow managed to be more elaborate than Suzanne's wedding gown.
You look adequate, dear. Remember, the photographer from Southern Living will be here, so try to look happy.
Southern Living. Of course, Brenda had arranged media coverage for her triumph. She had no idea she'd just invited witnesses to her own destruction. Suzanne's phone buzzed. A message from Detective Raymond Shaw. In position. Recording equipment ready. She'd reached out to Shaw after discovering he'd been investigating Tommy Reeves. The arrest had been his operation, and he was very interested in Brenda's connection to the crime boss. The wedding would be surveilled by more than just photographers today. The ceremony was set for 4 o'clock in the estate's garden. 300 guests, none of them Suzanne's choice, filled white chairs arranged in perfect rows. The string quartet played something classical and forgettable. Everything was exactly as Brenda had orchestrated, except for the USB drive hidden in Suzanne's bouquet, and the laptop Lori had concealed in the reception tent, and the surprise guests who'd received last-minute invitations from anonymous sources. As Suzanne waited for her cue, she saw him, Tommy Reeves, out on bail, sitting in the back row. Brenda had invited him to the wedding. Even now, even with federal charges hanging over him, she was maintaining the facade. Or perhaps she didn't know about his arrest. Perhaps his presence was part of her plan. The wedding march began. Suzanne walked down the aisle alone. Brenda had vetoed her choice of her cousin Marie as escort, keeping her eyes fixed on Darrell. He looked sick, knowing what they were about to do. The ceremony proceeded with mechanical precision. The minister, one of Brenda's society friends, droned through traditional vows that felt like lies. Suzanne and Darrell responded at the right moments, exchanged rings, played their parts. Then came the moment Suzanne had been waiting for.
If anyone has cause why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace.
A theatrical pause. Then Suzanne turned to face the congregation.
I do.
Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brenda's face went from smug satisfaction to confusion to rage in 3 seconds flat.
What are you doing?
I'm telling the truth, Brenda. Something you might want to try.
Suzanne pulled the USB drive from her bouquet and handed it to Lori, who'd moved to the projection screen Brenda had set up for the reception slideshow. Within seconds, the first email appeared on screen. Brenda discussing the theft of $40,000 from Hampton High School. The crowd murmured, confused. But then more emails appeared. Discussions of framing Martin Price, jokes about destroying his life, and then the life insurance email, giant on the screen for everyone to read. The life insurance policy on my son is now active. $2 million with myself as beneficiary. If something were to happen during their honeymoon in the Bahamas, it would be tragic, but would resolve our mutual problem. The garden erupted. Guests were on their feet, phones out, recording everything. The Southern Living photographer was shooting rapidly, capturing Brenda's horror, Darrell's anguish, the crowd's shock. Brenda found her voice.
Those are fake. She's insane. She's having a breakdown.
But then Martin Price stepped forward from the back of the garden, flanked by 2 FBI agents.
They're not fake, Brenda. I have the originals, and I've given them to the authorities.
Judge Foster tried to leave quietly, but found his way blocked by more agents. The trap Suzanne had helped set wasn't just for Brenda. It was for the entire network. Tommy Reeves stood up, his face purple with rage.
You told me the money would be here today. You promised.
Shut up, you fool.
But Tommy wasn't done. Perhaps he saw the FBI closing in. Perhaps he decided if he was going down, he'd take everyone with him.
She came to me, begged for loans to cover her gambling, said her son's marriage would solve everything, that there was family money. But there is no money, is there? It's all lies, just like those other deals you made. Judge Foster fixing cases, Principal Hayes stealing from schools.
Detective Shaw stepped forward, badge visible.
Tommy Reeves, you're in violation of your bail conditions. Brenda Haynes, Judge William Foster, you're under arrest for conspiracy, embezzlement, and attempted murder.
The garden descended into chaos. Guests fled or filmed, unsure which instinct was stronger. The string quartet abandoned their instruments. The Southern Living photographer kept shooting, knowing she'd just captured the story of the year. Brenda tried to run, but her elaborate dress and heels betrayed her. She fell hard on the garden path, her carefully styled hair coming undone, her makeup running with tears of rage and humiliation. As the FBI agents cuffed her, she looked at Darrell with pure venom.
You let her do this to me, your own mother.
You were going to kill me, Mom. For money. For $2 million.
I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you.
No. You sacrificed everything for yourself, for your image, for your pride.
As they led her away, Brenda's mask finally, completely shattered. She screamed obscenities, threats, promises of revenge. The elegant, controlled woman who'd orchestrated every detail of this wedding was gone, replaced by someone desperate and destroyed. But then something unexpected happened. As the FBI agents guided Brenda past the remaining guests, Mrs. Richardson from the garden club stood up.
I knew something was wrong. My husband's firm audited the Hampton School District last year. We found discrepancies, but Brenda always had explanations. Perfect, logical explanations.
Then Mrs. Vale spoke up. She borrowed $30,000 from me 2 years ago. For Darrell's medical emergency, she said. But Darrell was never sick, was he? More voices joined in. People Brenda had charmed, manipulated, stolen from. Each revelation was another crack in the facade she'd spent years building. The FBI agents were taking notes, realizing their case was even bigger than they'd thought. Senator Williams, the man Brenda had placed so prominently at the rehearsal dinner, stepped forward with his own confession.
She had photographs, compromising ones from a moment of weakness years ago. She's been blackmailing me to get her friends' children into prestigious colleges, to fix parking tickets, to look the other way on her school board activities.
Detective Shaw's eyes lit up. This wasn't just embezzlement anymore. It was a web of extortion, blackmail, and corruption that reached into the highest levels of Atlanta society. Brenda, hearing all this from the police car, began laughing, a horrible, broken sound.
You're all hypocrites, every one of you. You wanted what I could give you, the connections, the favors, the status. You're all just as guilty as I am.
She wasn't entirely wrong. The garden was full of people who'd benefited from Brenda's schemes, who'd looked the other way when things seemed suspicious because the advantages were too good to question. The garden emptied quickly after that, guests fleeing not just from social destruction, but from their own complicity. Soon only a few people remained: Suzanne, Darrell, Lori, and surprisingly, some of Suzanne's actual friends. Janet from the bookstore, her cousin Marie, her sister Emma. Lori had secretly invited them at the last minute, ensuring Suzanne would have real support when everything fell apart. Emma rushed to Suzanne, enveloping her in a fierce hug.
I got Lori's message this morning. Drove straight through from Nashville. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner.
Marie joined them, her weathered face full of concern and pride.
You did the right thing, honey. That woman was poison and you just saved everyone from drinking it.
Their presence, these real, genuine people who loved her, made Suzanne realize just how isolated Brenda had made her feel. For months, she'd been surrounded by Brenda's choices, Brenda's people, Brenda's world. Now, with her actual support system here, she remembered who she really was. Darrell stood among the overturned chairs and abandoned decorations, looking lost.
We're not actually married, are we? I mean, we didn't finish the ceremony.
No, we're not married.
Do you still want to be? I mean, not today, but someday, after all this?
Suzanne looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man she'd fallen in love with, but also the man who'd never stood up to his mother until it was almost too late. The man who'd let Brenda take over their lives, their wedding, their future. The man who'd needed to see a murder plot before he finally acted. She loved him, but love wasn't enough anymore.
I don't know, Darrell. I really don't know.
He nodded, understanding more than she'd said. He walked away through the ruined garden, shoulders bent with the weight of his mother's crimes and his own complicity. Lori approached with a tablet, showing a news alert.
It's already online. Society wedding becomes FBI sting. You're trending.
Suzanne looked at the headline, at the photos of Brenda being arrested, at the comments already pouring in. Tomorrow, everyone would know. Brenda's carefully constructed reputation was destroyed, and with it, her power to hurt anyone else. But there was one more thing to handle. Suzanne walked to where the wedding cake still stood, 7 tiers of golden excess. She picked up the cake knife, the one engraved with Mr. and Mrs. Haynes that Brenda had specially ordered. With careful precision, she cut a single piece from the bottom tier. The whole structure wobbled, but didn't fall. She took a bite of the cake. It was dry, too sweet, style over substance. Just like everything Brenda had chosen. Her phone rang, an unknown number, but she answered.
Ms. Miller, this is Rebecca Chen from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We'd like to offer you a book deal for your story, 6 figures, full editorial support.
I'll think about it.
She hung up and looked around the destroyed wedding scene. In trying to ruin her, Brenda had actually freed her. The prenup was worthless now. The threats were empty. The past Brenda had tried to weaponize seemed insignificant compared to attempted murder and embezzlement. Janet approached with a bottle of champagne she'd salvaged from the reception tent.
So what now?
Now I start over again, but this time on my own terms.
They drank champagne from paper cups as the sun set over the Haynes estate. Police tape was being strung around the garden. Evidence teams were arriving. The perfect society wedding had become a crime scene. But for the first time in months, Suzanne felt free. Free from Brenda's manipulation, free from the suffocating expectations, free from the need to be anyone but herself. Her phone buzzed with messages. Emma saying she was proud of her, Marie offering her spare room if she needed it, her old book club wanting to hear everything, real friends, real family, the people Brenda had tried to exclude. As night fell, Suzanne walked through the estate one last time. In the bridal suite, Her wedding dress still hung on its mannequin. She ran her fingers over the silk and pearls, beautiful, expensive, and chosen by someone else. She left it there, a ghost of what might have been. Outside, Lori waited with her car. But before they could leave, Detective Shaw approached one more time.
Ms. Miller, we'll need a full statement tomorrow. But I wanted to thank you. Without your investigation, we might never have connected all these dots. You've helped expose a corruption network we've been trying to crack for years.
I just wanted my wedding back, my life back.
Well, you've done much more than that. Martin Price will get his reputation restored. The Hampton School District will recover its stolen funds. And who knows how many future victims you've saved from Brenda's schemes.
He handed her his card, then paused.
That email about the life insurance, if you hadn't found that, Darrell Haynes would probably be dead within a month. You saved his life, literally.
After he left, Suzanne stood in the ruins of the wedding, processing everything. The catering staff was packing up food that would never be eaten. The string quartet was carefully casing their abandoned instruments. The florist was salvaging what she could of the elaborate arrangements. The wedding coordinator, one of Brenda's society friends, approached hesitantly.
I had no idea. She seemed so proper, so perfect. I'm sorry for how I treated you, acting like you weren't good enough for this world.
It's not your fault. Brenda was very good at creating illusions.
Still, I should have seen it. The way she dismissed your choices, excluded your guests. It wasn't about class or standards. It was about control.
One by one, vendors and staff approached Suzanne, offering apologies, support, and in some cases, refunds. The photographer from Southern Living promised to tell the real story, not the society puff piece Brenda had orchestrated. As the estate emptied, Suzanne walked through the reception tent one last time. The tables were still perfectly set with china and crystal that would never be used. The dance floor Brenda had insisted on, imported Italian marble tiles, gleamed under the chandeliers. The band's instruments stood ready for songs that would never be played. At the head table, place cards spelled out Brenda's vision of the perfect wedding party. Suzanne picked up her own card, Mrs. Darrell Haynes, not even her name, just an extension of his. She tore it in half, then quarters, then let the pieces flutter to the ground like confetti. Her phone rang. It was her old boss from the bookstore in Cincinnati, the one who'd been forced to fire her after the embezzlement scandal.
Suzanne, I just saw the news. I'm so sorry for what I did to you back then. I knew you were telling the truth about the missing money, but the board threatened to close the store if I didn't let you go. Can you ever forgive me?
It's in the past now. We all did what we had to do to survive.
If you ever want to come back, there's always a job for you here, with a promotion and a public apology.
Suzanne thanked him, but made no commitments. Cincinnati was her past. What came next was still unwritten. Finally, she and Lori made their way to the car.
Where to?
Home, my little apartment that Brenda hated.
As they drove away, Suzanne saw the news vans arriving, ready to broadcast Brenda's downfall to the world. By tomorrow, everyone would know the truth about the perfect mother, the perfect wedding, the perfect family that never really existed. But tonight, Suzanne would sleep peacefully for the first time in months. She'd stood up to a bully, exposed a criminal, and saved a life. Darrell's, and maybe her own too. The wedding hadn't gone as planned. It had gone better, because sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. Sometimes it's served at a garden party with 300 witnesses and full media coverage. And sometimes the most beautiful thing about a wedding isn't the dress or the flowers or the cake. It's the moment you realize you don't have to go through with it. The morning of the wedding dawned perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of May day that wedding photographers dream about. Suzanne Miller stood in the bridal suite of the Haynes estate, surrounded by strangers pretending to be friends, while her real plan took shape through carefully orchestrated text messages. The suite itself was a testament to Brenda's excess. Fresh orchids flown in from Thailand, champagne that cost more per bottle than Suzanne's monthly grocery budget, and a makeup artist who kept insisting on adding more foundation to cover those worry lines. Suzanne's phone buzzed constantly with updates. Lori was in position at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with her editor, ready to break the story. Martin Price waited in the parking lot with FBI agents who'd been very interested in his evidence about Judge Foster. And Darrell, pale but determined, was playing his part as the nervous groom in his own suite across the estate. Brenda swept into the suite at precisely noon, wearing a mother-of-the-groom dress that somehow managed to be more elaborate than Suzanne's wedding gown, beaded, sequined, with a train that required its own handler.
You look adequate, dear. Remember, the photographer from Southern Living will be here, so try to look happy and grateful, very grateful.
Southern Living. Of course, Brenda had arranged media coverage for her triumph. She had no idea she'd just invited witnesses to her own destruction. Brenda circled Suzanne like a predator, adjusting the veil, smoothing imaginary wrinkles.
I've spent 30 years building the Haynes name in this city. Today is the culmination of that work. Don't disappoint me.
I wouldn't dream of it, Brenda.
The irony was lost on her future mother-in-law, who was already moving on to terrorize the bridesmaids, all Brenda's choices, women Suzanne had met exactly once before today. Suzanne's phone buzzed. A message from Detective Raymond Shaw. In position. Recording equipment ready. Judge Foster just arrived. She'd reached out to Shaw after discovering he'd been investigating Tommy Reeves. The arrest had been his operation, and he was very interested in Brenda's connection to the crime boss. The wedding would be surveilled by more than just photographers today. The hairdresser, another of Brenda's selections, began attacking Suzanne's hair with enough hairspray to damage the ozone layer.
Mrs. Haynes says you wanted something more sophisticated than your usual style.
Suzanne hadn't been consulted about her hair any more than she'd been consulted about the guest list, the venue, the food, or her own wedding dress. But she endured it all, knowing that in less than 3 hours, Brenda's kingdom would come crashing down. At 3:30, the wedding planner knocked.
Time to line up. The guests are all seated. Ms. Miller, you look exactly as Mrs. Haynes envisioned.
Even the wedding planner couldn't pretend Suzanne looked like herself. She looked like Brenda's creation, a puppet dressed up for a show. Suzanne's phone buzzed. A message from Detective Raymond Shaw. In position. Recording equipment ready. She'd reached out to Shaw after discovering he'd been investigating Tommy Reeves. The arrest had been his operation, and he was very interested in Brenda's connection to the crime boss. The wedding would be surveilled by more than just photographers today. The ceremony was set for 4 o'clock in the estate's garden. 300 guests, none of them Suzanne's choice, filled white chairs arranged in perfect rows. The string quartet played something classical and forgettable. Everything was exactly as Brenda had orchestrated, except for the USB drive hidden in Suzanne's bouquet, and the laptop Lori had concealed in the reception tent, and the surprise guests who'd received last-minute invitations from anonymous sources. As Suzanne waited for her cue, she saw him, Tommy Reeves, out on bail, sitting in the back row. Brenda had invited him to the wedding. Even now, even with federal charges hanging over him, she was maintaining the facade. Or perhaps she didn't know about his arrest. Perhaps his presence was part of her plan. The wedding march began. Suzanne walked down the aisle alone. Brenda had vetoed her choice of her cousin Marie as escort, keeping her eyes fixed on Darrell. He looked sick, knowing what they were about to do. The ceremony proceeded with mechanical precision. The minister, one of Brenda's society friends, droned through traditional vows that felt like lies. Suzanne and Darrell responded at the right moments, exchanged rings, played their parts. Then came the moment Suzanne had been waiting for.
If anyone has cause why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever, hold your peace.
A theatrical pause. Then Suzanne turned to face the congregation.
I do.
Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brenda's face went from smug satisfaction to confusion to rage in 3 seconds flat.
What are you doing?
I'm telling the truth, Brenda. Something you might want to try.
Suzanne pulled the USB drive from her bouquet, hidden among the white roses Brenda had insisted on, and handed it to Lori, who'd moved to the projection screen Brenda had set up for the reception slideshow. The screen was enormous, visible to everyone in the garden, meant to display Brenda's triumph. It would, just not the way she'd planned. Within seconds, the first email appeared on screen. Brenda discussing the theft of $40,000 from Hampton High School. The font was large, clear, impossible to misread. The crowd murmured, confused. Some people stood up, others pulled out their phones. But then more emails appeared, each more damning than the last. Discussions of framing Martin Price, jokes about destroying his life, detailed plans to manipulate the school board. Then came a series of bank statements showing mysterious deposits into Peachtree Holdings LLC, cross-referenced with school district withdrawals. The forensic accounting Suzanne had done was displayed in simple, devastating charts. And then the life insurance email, giant on the screen for everyone to read. The life insurance policy on my son is now active. $2 million with myself as beneficiary. If something were to happen during their honeymoon in the Bahamas, it would be tragic but would resolve our mutual problem. Boats can be so dangerous in international waters. The last line hadn't been visible in Suzanne's initial viewing. It was explicit, undeniable, monstrous. The garden erupted into absolute chaos. Guests were on their feet, phones out, recording everything. Someone screamed. Senator Williams' wife fainted, or pretended to. The Southern Living photographer was shooting rapidly, her camera clicking like machine gun fire, capturing Brenda's horror, Darrell's anguish, the crowd's shock. Children were being hustled away by their parents. The string quartet had stopped mid-note, violin bows frozen in air. Even the birds seemed to have gone silent. Brenda found her voice.
Those are fake. She's insane. She's having a breakdown.
But then Martin Price stepped forward from the back of the garden, flanked by 2 FBI agents.
They're not fake, Brenda. I have the originals, and I've given them to the authorities.
Judge Foster tried to leave quietly, but found his way blocked by more agents. The trap Suzanne had helped set wasn't just for Brenda, it was for the entire network. Tommy Reeves stood up, his face purple with rage.
You told me the money would be here today. You promised.
Shut up, you fool.
But Tommy wasn't done. Perhaps he saw the FBI closing in. Perhaps he decided if he was going down, he'd take everyone with him.
She came to me, begged for loans to cover her gambling, said her son's marriage would solve everything, that there was family money. But there is no money, is there? It's all lies, just like those other deals you made. Judge Foster fixing cases, Principal Hayes stealing from schools.
Detective Shaw stepped forward, badge visible.
Tommy Reeves, you're in violation of your bail conditions. Brenda Haynes, Judge William Foster, you're under arrest for conspiracy, embezzlement, and attempted murder.
The garden descended into complete chaos. Guests fled toward their cars or stood frozen, filming with their phones, unsure which instinct was stronger. The string quartet abandoned their instruments, leaving a cello on its side like a casualty of war. The Southern Living photographer kept shooting, knowing she'd just captured the story of the decade. Brenda tried to run, but her elaborate dress and 5-inch heels betrayed her. She stumbled on the garden path, her ankle twisting. As she fell, her carefully constructed facade crumbled with her. Her elegant updo came undone, gray roots showing through the expensive dye job. Her makeup ran in black streams down her face. The powerful, controlled woman who'd orchestrated every detail of this wedding was gone, replaced by someone desperate, frightened, and utterly exposed. As the FBI agents cuffed her, she looked at Darrell with pure venom. Her voice, when it came, was raw and savage.
You ungrateful little bastard. You let her do this to me, your own mother, after everything I sacrificed.
You were going to kill me, Mom, for money for $2 million. You were going to murder your own son.
His voice broke on the last word. This wasn't acting anymore. This was a son confronting the ultimate betrayal.
I gave you everything. The best schools, the best opportunities, the best life. I destroyed myself maintaining your lifestyle.
No. You destroyed yourself maintaining your lifestyle, your image, your pride. I was just another prop in your show, and when I became inconvenient, you decided to cash me in.
As they led her away, Brenda's mask completely shattered. She screamed obscenities that would have mortified her an hour ago. She threatened lawsuits, revenge, destruction. She named names, people who'd helped her, people who'd taken bribes, people who had their own secrets. The FBI agents were recording everything, their case getting stronger with every word she shrieked. But then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Richardson from the garden club stood up.
I knew something was wrong. My husband's firm audited the school district. We found discrepancies, but Brenda always had explanations.
She borrowed $30,000 from me for Darrell's medical emergency, she said. But Darrell was never sick, was he? More voices joined in. People Brenda had charmed, manipulated, stolen from. Senator Williams stepped forward.
She's been blackmailing me. She had photographs from years ago. Used them to get favors, admissions to colleges, overlooked violations.
The FBI agents were taking rapid notes. This wasn't just embezzlement. It was a web of corruption reaching into Atlanta's highest levels. The garden emptied after that. Soon only a few remained. Suzanne, Darrell, Lori, and Suzanne's real friends, Janet, Marie, Emma, whom Lori had secretly invited. Emma rushed to Suzanne.
I drove straight from Nashville when Lori called. I'm so proud of you.
Darrell stood among the overturned chairs, lost.
We're not actually married, are we?
No, we're not.
Do you still want to be? Someday?
Suzanne looked at him, the man she'd loved, who'd never stood up to his mother until almost too late.
I don't know, Darrell. I really don't know.
He walked away through the ruined garden. Lori approached with her tablet.
You're trending. Society wedding becomes FBI sting.
Suzanne walked to the wedding cake, 7 tiers of excess. She cut a single piece with the engraved knife. It was dry, too sweet, all style. Like everything Brenda had chosen. Her phone rang. Rebecca Chen from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Ms. Miller, we'd like to offer you a book deal. 6 figures.
I'll think about it.
Detective Shaw approached.
You saved Darrell's life. That insurance email, he'd have been dead within a month.
The estate emptied. Vendors apologized, some offering refunds. The wedding coordinator admitted she'd misjudged Suzanne. As night fell, Suzanne walked through the estate one last time. In the bridal suite, the dress hung like a ghost of what might have been. She left it there. Outside, Lori waited. Lori.
Where to?
Home. My apartment that Brenda hated.
As they drove away, news vans arrived. By tomorrow, everyone would know the truth about the perfect family that never existed. But tonight, Suzanne would sleep peacefully. She'd exposed a criminal, saved a life, reclaimed her own. The wedding hadn't gone as planned. It had gone better. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served at a garden party with 300 witnesses and full media coverage. And sometimes, the most beautiful thing about a wedding is realizing you don't have to go through with it. 6 weeks after the wedding that never was, Suzanne Miller sat in her new office overlooking Peachtree Street. The nameplate on the door read Miller Financial Consulting, her own business, funded by the advance from her book deal, and a surprising settlement from Brenda's seized assets that the FBI had traced back to the Hampton school theft. The morning sun streamed through windows she'd chosen herself, illuminating furniture she'd selected without anyone's input or criticism. Her phone rang, clients now, not threats. But this call was different. It was Darrell. She hadn't spoken to him since the day after the wedding, when he'd come to collect his things from her apartment, hollow-eyed and broken.
Suzanne, can we meet, just to talk?
They met at a coffee shop in Decatur, neutral territory. Darrell looked older, but somehow lighter, as if shedding his mother's weight had aged him and freed him simultaneously. He pushed a folder across the table.
The FBI released some of Mom's assets that weren't connected to her crimes. The house in Buckhead, some legitimate investments. I'm selling everything, making restitution to her victims. But this was grandmother's. Mom never knew about it.
Inside was a deed to a small cottage in Maine, right on the coast. The place Suzanne had wanted to honeymoon before Brenda changed it to the Bahamas, the location that was meant to be her grave. Suzanne stared at the papers, understanding the gesture, but unsure how to respond.
Darrell, I can't accept this.
It's not a gift. It's an apology. For every time I didn't stand up to her, for every friend of yours she excluded, for almost letting her—
He couldn't finish. The weight of his mother's planned murder still crushed him. They sat in silence, drinking coffee that grew cold. Around them, life continued. Students on laptops, mothers with strollers, normal people living normal lives without attempted murder or embezzlement or FBI stings. Finally, Suzanne spoke.
How is she?
Awaiting trial. Her lawyer says she'll probably get 15 to 20 years. She still insists she was framed, that you orchestrated everything. The delusion is complete.
There was nothing to say to that. Brenda had constructed her own reality for so long that actual reality must seem like the illusion now. Darrell stood to leave, then turned back.
I'm seeing a therapist, working through everything. Maybe someday, when we're both healed, we could try again, differently.
Maybe, someday, but not now.
He nodded and left, shoulders straight but steps heavy. Suzanne remained, staring at the deed to the cottage in Maine. A place to start over, or a reminder of what almost was? She wasn't sure yet. Her phone buzzed. Lori, with a photo from the Atlanta courthouse. Martin Price was on the steps, smiling broadly, holding papers. The text read, "Full exoneration, job restored, reputation cleared. He says thank you." Another text, this one from Detective Shaw. "Judge Foster took a plea deal. He's giving us everything, names, dates, amounts. Your evidence started an avalanche." The coffee shop door chimed, and Janet walked in, followed by Cousin Marie and Emma. Her real friends, the ones Brenda had tried to exclude, now regular fixtures in her life again.
Ready for lunch? That new southern place you wanted to try?
The one where they don't check your pedigree at the door?
They laughed, but it wasn't bitter anymore. The experience had scarred them all, but scars could be proof of survival, not just markers of pain. As they walked to lunch, Suzanne's phone rang again. Rebecca Chen from the newspaper.
Suzanne, I have news. Your book pre-sales are through the roof, and Netflix is interested in the documentary rights. This story resonated with so many women who've dealt with controlling mothers-in-law, with having their weddings hijacked, with losing themselves in relationships.
Suzanne thought of all the women who'd smiled politely while someone else planned their lives, who'd signed prenups under pressure, who'd lost their voices in the name of keeping peace. That evening, she stood in her apartment, the one Brenda had ransacked, now reorganized exactly as Suzanne wanted it. She'd thrown out the wedding dress, but kept the cake knife, the one engraved with Mr. and Mrs. Haynes. She used it now as a letter opener, its pretentious script a daily reminder of how close she'd come to disappearing into someone else's narrative. The local news played on her laptop. Brenda's trial was starting next week. The reporter stood outside the courthouse, summarizing the charges: embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted murder for hire. The woman who'd controlled every detail was now at the mercy of a system she couldn't manipulate. Suzanne turned it off. She'd testify when called, but she wouldn't watch the spectacle. That chapter was closed. She looked at the deed to the main cottage again, then made a decision. She'd go there for a week, alone. Not as a honeymoon or an escape, but as a choice. Her choice. Her phone rang one more time. An unknown number, but she answered.
Ms. Miller, my name is Grace Patterson. I'm supposed to get married in 3 months, and my mother-in-law is, well, she's taken over everything. I read about what happened to you. Could you help me? Not to destroy her, just to find my voice again?
Suzanne looked at her new business cards. Miller Financial Consulting. But maybe that wasn't all she was meant to do.
Tell me about your situation, Grace.
As she listened to another woman's story of erasure and control, Suzanne realized she'd found something in the ruins of her wedding. Purpose. Not just to balance books or expose crimes, but to help other women stand up before they disappeared completely. The wedding that never was had become something more. A revelation, a revolution, a rebirth. 3 months later, Suzanne stood on a cliff in Maine, wind whipping her hair, her natural gray now, no longer hidden. The cottage behind her was small, but hers. Her business was thriving. Her book was finished. The Netflix deal was signed. Darrell had written once, a long letter of apology and understanding. She'd responded kindly, but firmly. That door was closed. Brenda had been convicted on all counts. 23 years. The perfect mother would spend her 70s and 80s in federal prison. But Suzanne didn't think about that much anymore. She thought about Grace Patterson, who'd stood up to her mother-in-law, about the 3 other women she was now counseling through similar situations, about the speaking engagement next month at a women's conference. Her phone rang. Lori.
Turn on Channel 5 now.
Suzanne went inside and turned on the small TV. Breaking news. Tommy Reeves had been found guilty on all federal charges. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he'd provided evidence on a dozen other cases. The corruption network was unraveling completely. But what caught Suzanne's attention was the reporter's final words. This all began with one woman's courage at what should have been her wedding. One woman's courage. Suzanne turned off the TV and returned to the cliff. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere, women were planning weddings, signing prenups, losing themselves. But maybe, because of her story, a few would pause. Question, resist. She'd lost a wedding, but gained herself. Lost a fiancé, but found her purpose. Lost the life Brenda had planned for her, but created one that was entirely, authentically her own. The ending wasn't happy in the traditional sense. No wedding, no husband, no happily ever after. But it was hers. Every single bit of it was hers. And that, Suzanne thought, as waves crashed below and seabirds called overhead, was the happiest ending of all. Thank you so much for listening to this complete audiobook story. If you enjoyed Suzanne's journey from victim to victor, please consider subscribing to our channel for more captivating audiobook experiences. Your likes help us reach more listeners who appreciate quality storytelling. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Suzanne's choice? Would you have forgiven Darrell? Share your interpretations with our amazing community of audiobook lovers. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our next emotional, gripping story. Until next time, keep listening, keep feeling, and keep discovering amazing stories. Thank you for being part of our audiobook family.